Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about a recommendation from my Patreon people. When you are a member of my Patreon, you get to suggest what videos I'm doing. So here is one that has been asked for by numerous people on my Patreon. One being Hannah and the other one being Sing Tao. They have wanted me to do a video on Wendy Williams, who is a talk show host. And she is, I haven't seen her show that many times. I've seen it a couple of times, but let me just say something about Wendy Williams. She is bigger than life, her personality. She's a beautiful woman. And I think people watch her for the shock factor about what she brings to the table and what she does on the show. I mean, really, it's shocking. The things she says, the things she does. But that's her appeal, I think, to the public, because she is something else, that woman. A great entertainer in that respect. She started out doing a lot with radio. That was her big thing. And then she went into television, which people just loved her because she's bigger than life. Who doesn't want to see somebody that entertaining? And as a talk show host, she would captivate people. I mean, bigger than life personality. But what's happened to her recently is she has come down with some mental illness. And it's really, really sad because this has taken her ability to do her work. And so many things have been so difficult for her. She's had problems with drugs. She's had problems with, relationships. Everything is really hard for Wendy right now. So they wanted me to take a look at her chart. And let's put up Wendy Williams' chart and see what we can see going on for her. All right, so Wendy, she has, looking at her chart, she has a Capricorn ascendant. And what I noticed, though, from looking at her ascendant, as well as looking at her moon sign, which her moon is in Scorpio, she has natural malefic planets in the second house. Saturn is in the second house from the ascendant, and from her moon sign, she has K2 in the second house. What in the world does that mean? When you have malefics in the second house deals with early childhood experiences. And actually, in her Wikipedia, it didn't really make any notifications of anything traumatic happening in her childhood. But looking at her chart, her childhood experiences were very difficult for her. It's really hard for her to adapt. And that really does set the tone for who we are for the rest of our life. They say that when you're born, the first 3 years are formative, that we take in everything, and it kind of has a major effect. Well, not kind of, it really does have a major effect on our personality. And so she came from a place of difficulty, and this actually does have a major effect on your sense of self. That's another thing that the second house deals with, and family. So her sense of self. Oh, and one thing I did note in her Wikipedia, she did really poorly in school. That doesn't help with your self-esteem. And plus, she had a sister that did really, really well. So Wendy is amazing that she was able to find herself and become a success with the harsh beginnings in her childhood. But going to her fifth house, her fifth house is amazing. And the fifth house is, I always tell people, it's my favorite house because it's a house that deals with your creativity. And it is also in Vedic astrology called the house of Puva Punya, which is past life good karma that is due in this lifetime. So thinking about that, I think that that really does equate to talent. So she is extraordinarily talented. Maybe she didn't do great on the math tests, but when it comes to being creative, a performer, she is stellar. With this Mars and Venus exactly conjunct in the 5th house. Now you can say that both those planets are, because they're so close to each other in planetary war. When planets are the same degree, they kind of fight for attention. But usually Venus wins out in this case because it's a brighter planet. But it is ruler of the 5th and the 5th. Why? Because her Venus, Mars are in Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus, so the ruler of the 5th house is in the 5th house, magnifying her ability for creativity and talent. Puva Punya is past life good karma that's due in this lifetime. She was due this opportunity to be a star. Now, furthermore, when I look at this configuration in her 5th house, the 5th house is also the house that can deal with, they say it is writing in terms of authorship. It's a house of authorship. So I didn't look it up, but I am sure Wendy has some books out and they've got to be stellar because she's got this talent to communicate a message about life and to be relatable to people, because her moon sits in the 11th house, and the 11th house is the house of friends, groups, and organizations. People like Wendy. Growing up as a kid, maybe she wasn't the smartest, but she was probably really popular because she had a personality that you can't ignore, right? Entertainer, amazing. But the moon is in Scorpio, and Scorpio is the moon's debilitation sign. And people that have the moon in Scorpio usually do have to deal with a lot of jealousy, okay? Comes at them, friends and people. But she was well liked, let me put it that way. But Saturn aspects her moon. And with its 10th aspect, it's square to the moon. And that disrupts her mind. The moon is the mind. And that's what I always preach to all my students. And by the way, I forgot to tell you in the beginning that I have an astrology school. If you want to learn this, become a Vedic astrologer, you can go to my university website, universityofvedicastrology.com. And I forgot to tell you about my galactic planner, which will take your chart and do everything I'm doing here in Wendy's chart for you personally. Check out my galacticplanner.com. And don't forget, if you want to tell me what videos you want me to do for YouTube, you can become part of my Patreon. Find all of that on galacticcenter.org. Sorry, I forgot to mention that at first. Now, with Saturn aspecting her moon, this is so important because what Wendy's going through right now is mental illness. And look at Saturn. Saturn is in Aquarius, and it is her chart ruler. Saturn in Aquarius is serious stuff. I mean, as funny and entertaining as she is very serious when it comes, when push comes to shove. And people with mental illness, they can push down their feelings for so long and it finally comes up and takes over their life. And her Saturn is in the nakshatra called Shatabhishak. That nakshatra is called the 100 Healers. And it does deal with healing, but most of all, many times it denotes a hard to cure disease. And I have made reference to this over and over again, that nakshatra deals with mental disease, because that's the hardest to cure. Deals with addictions, deals with mental disease. We know so little about the brain. They have major drugs that just simply suppress things in the brain, but there is no cure. And that's what Wendy's facing. Mental disease, her Saturn. Saturn is aspecting the moon, and her sun is in Cancer. Her sun and Mercury being in Cancer. Cancer is the sign that is the most sensitive. She feels everything. She may blow it off, oh, the media's making fun of me again, ha. It really bothers her, even though she pretends it doesn't. Cancers, just think about the symbol for Cancer. It's a crab. It's got a hard shell, but in the inside, it is nothing but mush. Cancers are so sensitive and never let people know. Her sun and Mercury. Mercury is also how we process information. It's the mind, thinking mind. The moon is the intelligence in the mind. And when you look at her Mercury being in Cancer, ruled by the moon, her sun being in Cancer, ruled by the moon plays out vitally important in the sign of Scorpio, its debilitation sign. But you know what's so interesting, going back to the second house, where from the ascendant she has Saturn, from the moon she has Ketu. The second house is our voice. And she has been blatant and over the top honest about things. She talks her mind, and things that I feel I would never say on public TV. It's just, she can be so real. That's what Saturn is, reality. What is Ketu? Beyond this world. She gets out there and she says the things that nobody would dare saying. But I think that's her likability. People are like, she makes herself vulnerable, but you know what? It really inside hurts her that she's getting the backlash that she is. And I think it's all built up to having this major issue of mental illness. Now, looking at her future, I noticed that in June, by the end of June, her dasha is going to change from Venus Saturn to Venus Mercury. Mercury is a powerful planet in her chart. It is in her 7th house of partners. So I'm thinking a partnership will help her during this time. This dasha will take her all the way to the year of 2028. So there is hope here. Furthermore, transiting Ketu is going, and Rahu, they're going to shift signs. And of course, they're exactly opposite. Ketu's going to go into Leo while Rahu goes into Aquarius. And Rahu coming into Aquarius can be helpful for her speech, getting her, her voice out there. But Ketu's going to go into the 8th house. This is deep, this is dark, this deals with psychology. She is going to have to go into the depths of her soul to heal. It's going to be hard. If she can make it, I think by the time, well, Jupiter just crossed over her Mercury and her Mars recently. This would have been around the first week or two of May. And this gives promise. I don't know if it's made it in the news or not, but this gives promise. Wendy is incredibly talented, and it must be just maddening that she can't do something creative. Maybe she's writing another book. Maybe it is a healing book. Because Jupiter when it goes into Gemini, May 14th, which it does for everyone, it's going to go into her 6th house where it's going to remain for a year. And that's the house of healing. Some major events can happen that can bring her healing. Jupiter in the 6th house, it's going to cross over Rahu. This is going to be around, let me see, probably in June and July. There can be some major events, healing, getting in touch with all that has caused her to be so hurt from the beginning of her life, and especially to her career on television. She is emotionally, deeply, profoundly hurt. And I feel like through some major healing, processing her information, she can heal this. But the whole time that K2 is in her 8th house, she is digging deep, and it is going to be psychologically transformational, but not easy. You know, facing up to all of our shadow side, that's what the 8th house is. Isn't easy, but that's what people have to do to heal. That's what Wendy has to do. And Rahu will cross over her Saturn in about a year. That will be tough. But she's got to stay on track. She's got to stay on track. I think she's going to make great progress. And I think we haven't seen the end of Wendy, because Wendy is going to come back with some writings, some information on healing. That's where I think Wendy Williams is going to go. She is a force to be reckoned with in this universe, and I don't think she's finished. I think she has some great capacity to come back to talk about mental health and how these things can be healed and what needs to be done. Everything happens for a reason, and I think Wendy came down with this because she has an important mission to help. Yeah, I mean, she said some crazy things. She's done some crazy things. I'm with you. I'm sure she'd admit to that. But she does have the opportunity to heal. That's what I'm going to say and leave you with. So thank you for your suggestions, Hannah and Sing Tao. You guys are amazing on my Patreon, always giving me great ideas, and your unity and community with you guys has definitely made my life richer. I will see you guys on Patreon and on Shooting Stars, and thank you again for your suggestions.